Yes, this video is almost done. It's gonna be a good one. Let's just export it. What? 4 hours? Welcome back, you guys. My name is Sergey. I am your host for Design DJ. We will be doing a custom PC build today. We're going to be building an ITX PC, which is a small form factor PC. Small form factor PCs right now is a hot thing. A lot of people are ditching their monstrous PCs that sit underneath their desk into something beautiful and gorgeous like this case right here. Also, if you're working in a smaller studio or a smaller space or have limited amount of space where you can put that PC, you might be interested in ITX PC builds as well. But going smaller form factor does not mean you have to give up performance or that processing power, because right here we have some very awesome parts and we're gonna go through them one by one a little bit later. So with smaller form factor PCs, you do have to get specific parts for it because not everything can be crammed and fit into this case. For example, you have to go with a smaller motherboard to go with a smaller size PSU to power these goodies up. So one big complaint that I've heard from multiple people who use this case and did similar build is that they're complaining about heat. You are cramming a lot of technology into one small space, so heat is definitely something you have to consider. So for that specific reason, we are going to be doing a couple upgrades here. So one, we can be going with liquid metal from Cool Labs. Yep, you guessed it, we're going to be deleting that chip to bring those temperatures down. But wait, there's more. Number two, we're going to be replacing the stock IHS with a copper one from Rocket Cool. And the benefits of a copper heat spreader is that it's going to help us to dissipate that heat even faster. And number three thing to tackle that heat issue is we're gonna be going with water cooling. So that's pretty much it for the overview of what we're gonna be doing today. So let's just jump in and see what parts we're gonna be working with. Let's start with the heart of the computer, which is the CPU. It does all the heavy lifting. It's the muscle of the machine. This chip decides what you can, cannot, and how much you can really do. As we know, that 8700K chip reigned for many years and still is a highly sought after chip, but I opted to go for something a little more special, the 8086K, Intel's limited edition 40th year anniversary chip, which essentially is an upgraded version of the 8700K. It comes boosted to 4 GHz straight out of the box and can be overclocked to melting 5.35 GHz, and I didn't have to break my piggy bank as I would have had to for the i9 series. Next up, we have the motherboard. I managed to grab the Strix Z390i gaming motherboard when it was on sale. So this way down the road, if I decide to upgrade my CPU to the 9th generation, I will be able to do so without any problems. This is a gorgeous board, and Asus designers did great job even on the small details. And I love this nice touch of reflective lettering on the bottom part of the heatsink here. Good job, Asus, well done. For my memory, I decided to go with two 16 gigs of G.Skill Trident's RGB sticks. In my opinion, they look freaking awesome and should add a very nice touch of colors, which could also be synchronized with the click of a button to your other RGB lights inside the case. For our power supply, it's better to stick to a reputable brand like Corsair. This SF450 looks so tiny and cute, but should be adequate to power up all of our tech. Moving along to storage, for our main SSD we got the tested, tried, and proven Samsung 960 EVO in 500GB NVMe M.2. In addition, it will be paired with a spare 128GB Kingston M.2 drive I had laying around. And for our AIO, we have Corsair's latest edition of the H80i, the version 2, that comes with dual 120mm fans and a thicker radiator that should technically give us the same cooling power as the 240mm AIO. You just gotta love Corsair's R&D. And for our special mods, as I mentioned earlier, we will be looking to delid that CPU, apply some liquid metal, and replace that stock IHS with this copper one. I wanted to give special thanks to James and guys at Rocket Cool for being super rad and sending this in for our cool little experiment. Get it? Cool experiment? I will drop a link to their website in the description down below, please check them out. Now let's discuss the graphic card of my choice. I settled for the Gigabyte GTX 1070 Mini. Now, since Premiere Pro primarily utilizes CPU and needs GPU only for acceleration and nothing more, I found no need to spend twice as much in order to obtain a card that neither I or any other application that I use for my work requires. Keep in mind that I will not be using the system for gaming or mining bitcoins. And last but definitely not the least, the crib, the dwelling place, residency for all the expensive goodies. At a $100 price point, this case is impossible to beat by its looks, quality, fit, and finish. Remember I mentioned those monstrous PC towers that gamers hide under their desks? Well, in all honesty, many of those cases belong there. However, it would be extremely cruel for this case to get the same treatment. With tempered glass on both sides, clean and elegant lines, and with button-free surfaces, it definitely is eye candy. This case deserves a spot on top of your desk to show off its radiant beauty to all who enter the room. And to top it all off, we will be adding a few magnetic LED RGB strips which had to be purchased separately. Fentex. They should do a fabulous job illuminating the expensive tech resting behind the glass. Otherwise, what's the point in having glass panels in the first place? So there you have it. These are the parts that I chose to go with for this build. So now, let's get to the fun part. Let's get busy building this little monster. Houston, we got a problem. So when I went to take this CPU and installing it into motherboard, I was confused for a second because these grooves in the CPU were not lining up with the grooves in the motherboard. And that threw me off for a minute, but then it became quite obvious since this was an open box new purchase. Apparently it was far from that. It wasn't new and somebody actually had tampered with this chip. So they took the liberty of deleting this chip and keeping the actual processor chip for themselves and just taking the 8086 IHS onto their old chip and just selling it off. It's a shame that somebody would go that distance to do something lowly as that. So for those who are looking to do PC builds in the future, may this serve you as a reminder and a word of caution to buy new and sealed parts only. A couple saved bucks is not worth the trouble or the hassle if something like this deemed to happen. We can consider this as a lesson learned for the future to buy everything sealed and new. But looking at the bright side, I think this is going to turn out much better for us. So back to the seller, this processor is going to go. So as soon as I realized what the problem was, I went and ordered a new CPU. So that new surprise is actually on its way here while we're recording this little segment. Wait, I think I hear something. Hold on a second. And the package has arrived. That was pretty quick. Now let's open it up and see what's inside. So you might have guessed it, it's no other than i9-9900K. I guess it's a good thing that I went with the Z390i motherboard that supports 9th generation chips. Looks like everything's already here, so let's get back to work. Now, only if I could figure out how to open this darn thing. guys, there she is, fully built and assembled in all her glory. I was a bit anxious prior to starting this build because how tight all the components need to be, and I was fearing something might not fit. So I watched a few other YouTubers who filmed their build with this case, so watching those really helped me out. One thing I did differently though, since Gigabyte's graphic cards are so small, I managed to rotate the graphics card bracket 180 degrees. This allowed the front, which is a decorative part of the graphics card, to face the glass, since the back side of the card is just PCB and tons of solder points, not something I wanted to showcase. Other than that, I don't really have any issues, and all the components fit and everything just worked out fine. So the most challenging part for me was to come up with the ways to cleverly route the cables in a way that they will not be showing. That's another awesome thing about this case, is that Fantex has really thought about cable management, and they've provided you back panel, the front panel, and the center channel through which you can route the cables. And also the added Velcro strips along those points just makes the job so much easier. So due to the dilemma that we ran into with 8086K, so I was kind of bummed out that I couldn't do the Rocket Cool mod on it by deleting the chip, applying liquid metal, putting that copper IHS back on, and seeing how much cooler the chip would run inside this case. So I reached out to Rocket Cool explaining my misfortunes, and I'm telling you, these guys are super cool, you gotta check them out. Look what they have sent in, a direct die kit for the 9th generation chip. So that means that we're gonna be actually deleting this chip instead and applying this bracket directly over our die and applying a water cooler right on top of the die. So actually eliminate the middleman, which is the IHS, and have that heat go directly to the water cooler, and technically that should drop our temperatures drastically. This kit is actually the best way to go about dropping your temperatures, but you have to be careful applying that water cooler directly on top of your die because some of those dies are pretty fragile. But good thing for us, 9th generation chips, they have pretty thick die, so I think we should be okay. But that would have to be in a follow-up video because first I want to do some thermal tests of everything stock and see where we are with temperatures as is before we do the direct die mod. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If it helped you with your build, don't forget to leave a comment down below and hit that like button. Also, don't forget to check out the description for some useful links, and you guys can catch me in the next video. Until then.